Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
Thank you, mysterious voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I have found in my travels. Today it is Poetry Thursday, so I wanted to talk about some interesting poetry that I found from an LGBTQA typewriter, as we are in this period of Pride that extends from the end of May to the end of July. And today's poem is a bit of an interesting one about hope, the future, and healing from yesterday's wounds. I am referring to The Mystery of Meteors by Eleanor Lerman. For those who don't know, Eleanor Lerman is an American writer who's been writing since the 1960s. She primarily writes about sexual identity, sexuality, those kinds of things. And what's interesting is that she wrote a major piece of poetry work in the 1960s. And it drew quite a critical hubbub with a lot of people like getting up in arms about how sexualized it was and whatnot, and people being highly critical of it in that way, in a way that I don't think they were actually like responding to the content. They were they weren't responding to the quality of writing. They were responding to the sort of content in a way that suggested that it was more conservative in nature of those responses or something like that. And that pushed Eleanor to stop writing for like 20 to 30 years. And she started writing again in the late 90s. It's possible she was writing elsewhere and just not getting her work published in a major way. But she didn't begin writing anew until the 90s, and she continued writing basically what she had been writing in the 60s, and it's pretty interesting work. It's based on her like identity as a lesbian woman, and she's won a number of awards for her work in that way too. So pretty fascinating. Very unfortunate that an overly conservative culture tried to silence her, but she did find her voice again, which was good. And so without further ado, let's talk about The Mystery of Meteors. I will read it, do a little bit of analysis, and we will move on from there. The Mystery of Meteors. I am out before dawn, marching a small dog through a meager park. Boulevards angle away, newspapers fly around like blind white birds. 2 days in a row I have not seen the meteors, though the radio news says they are overhead. Leonid's brimstones are barred by clouds. I cannot read the signs in heaven. I cannot see night rendered into fire. And yet I do believe a net of glitter is above me. You would not think I still knew these things. I get on the train, I buy the food, I sweep, discuss, consider gloves or boots, and in the summer open windows, find beads to string with pearls. You would not think that I had survived anything but the life you see me living now. In the darkness, the dog stops and sniffs the air. She has been alone, she has known danger, and so now she watches for it always. And I agree with the conviction of my mistakes. But in the second part of my life, slowly, I begin to counsel bravery. Slowly, I begin to feel the planets turning, and I am turning toward the crackling shower of their sparks. These are the mysteries I could not approach when I was younger. The boulevards, the meteors, the deep desires that split the sky, walking down the paths of the cold park. I remember myself, the one who can wait out anything. So I cautioned the dog to go silently, to bear with me, the burden of knowing what spins on and on above our heads. For this is our reward. Come Armageddon, come fire or flood, come love, not love, millennia of portents. There is a future in which the dog and I are laughing. Born into it, the mystery. I know we will be saved. And so in terms of analysis, that was The Mystery of Meteors. There's a fair bit to talk about with this poem in terms of narrative. I think it's pretty simple narrative there, but within it there's a lot worth talking about. The unnamed narrator is walking their dog through the city, and they can't see the meteors in the sky that have been promised by the scientist, but they know that they're there, and they equate that to what's going on in their life, especially what's been going on in the past with them experiencing some trouble, the perils of youth. And they know that they will eventually heal and become better, knowing that with age things will get better. And although they do think they should walk with caution, they are willing to go headfirst into this abyss of the new. And they equate it to the dog also being a little wary of what to see in the world. So it's really a poem about, opening yourself up again after maybe you were hurt in your youth. And the experience of being older, realizing that things might have been bad at one point, but you survived it, and you will continue to survive as things go on, as long as you proceed with a little bit of caution. So I like how they equate to what's going on in the sky to what's going on in their own life. You see this in the first and second verse with them saying, "I cannot see night rendered into fire, and yet I do believe a net of glitter is above me. You would not think I still knew these things." And then later in the second verse, they say, "You would not think I had survived anything but the life you see me living now." So kind of like appearances can be deceiving, just as like with the cloud, you can't tell that there's meteors crashing into the earth. Like if you look at the narrator, you can't see that they had survived some pretty gnarly things, that they had gone through some hardships in their life, that they clearly have. And so appearances can be deceiving, and that is pretty much what is going on with the narrator. And I also like how they sort of lump their feelings on the dog. In the third verse, I believe it is, she says, "In the darkness the dog stops and sniffs the air. She has been alone, she has known danger, and so now she watches for it always, and I agree with the conviction of my mistakes." So, is the dog actually sniffing for danger? It's possible for dogs to learn from, their own events happening to them, but I do think the narrator might be placing some sort of projection onto the dog with them just like feeling a certain way about the world, knowing that they have to go through the world with a little bit of danger, and saying, "Oh, well, the dog feels the same way." Maybe it's better for the narrator to believe that, because if the dog is going through it, then they share something in common with another being in the world. Even if it is this dog, there's still a commonality there that helps them feel better about their experience. And then, like in the last verse, it gets pretty biblical, but there is some hope there, which is a large aspect of this poem. It says, "For this is our reward, come Armageddon, come fire or flood, come love, not love, millennia portents. There is a future in which the dog and I are laughing, born into it, the mystery. I know we will be saved." So like, come love, come not love, come really anything, come Armageddon, the Bible and whatnot. Like, come the worst that there has to be. Like, I know that the dog and I will be good. We'll laugh. We'll be saved. Like, we'll have we might go through some bad things, but ultimately we'll come out all right. It won't be as bad. And that's a very optimistic way of viewing the world. Certainly more optimistic than some poems that I've read on this channel. But I do like it for how it's somewhat hopeful, even though you have gone through some pretty bad things. Anyway, those are my thoughts on The Mystery of Meteors by Eleanor Lerman. A pretty solid poem. One that is a bit more optimistic than some of the other LGBT poems that I've read during this period of Pride. But those poems aren't lesser than for not being optimistic. They're all pretty good, including this one, which I'll put a link to in the description. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about this poem or this poet if they don't already know, or about Poetry Thursday. That's get more people doing that kind of thing. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and potentially hopeful travels. Farewell.